Trump's big, beautiful bill went into law yesterday. And what does that mean for the U.S. truck market? I had some thinking about that this morning. So, hey, it's Tim, Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. Let's talk about three key things that can come out of that tax bill that could impact you shopping for a new truck or SUV. So, I wrote it up for pickuptrucktalk.com. Let's write it on your screen here. And it's on the homepage, and I'll put a link in the description below. You can read the story for yourself if you don't want to hear me talk on about this bill and what's going on. So it's always interesting when lawmakers pass legislation and then how do automakers respond to it. But let's just talk about what the tax bill does and how it will impact the U.S. truck market moving forward in 2025 and beyond. So I talked more about the bill, when it went into law and what happened. First thing that was a big change, like Willie pointed out, was the corporate average fuel economy program. The fines have ended. This is, I think, the pretty big deal. Now, this was signed into law in 1975 as a response to the Iran oil crisis. They'd gone through a couple of revolutions. Oil prices had skyrocketed, and we needed a program to kind of push automakers to build more fuel-efficient vehicles because we had vehicles that were really not efficient, and it was a big issue. And so the program was aimed at improving fuel efficiency, reducing dependence on foreign oil, and thereby improving our national security. Every president since then has tweaked the program. It's a combination program between the EPA and National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and it's made vehicles better. I mean, there's no doubt that a 1975 truck versus today's truck, the fuel economy differences are just startling. And so there's a quote from Chris Harto that says, "The proposed changes effectively gut the popular CAFE program, turning into nothing more than an accounting requirement with no teeth," which is kind of spot on. So they took away the fines, and the idea there was if there's no fines for the program, then why do automakers need to comply with it? Which is pretty damn accurate. There's been some controversy about this program in recent years where consumers have said that the new engines that came out of this program, the turbocharged engines, the V8s with synthetic activation, the direct injection, had made new trucks less reliable. Okay. And there's been a lot of that criticism, but the other side of it is trucks have never been more fuel efficient. So without the CAFE rules, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the future years. Now, automakers tend to do long-term planning in 7, 8, 10-year cycles. And they also build engines in a global marketplace. Now, consumers tend to look at U.S. market as the U.S. market and everything that impacts U.S. market. And automakers can look at things in the global spectrum. So like the Hurricane engine that replaced the Hemi engine in the Ram lineup, for example, was built for a global marketplace. And Ram has said the Hurricane engine is more efficient, more powerful. It has a lot more benefits than the Hemi engine. So there's been some conversation online yesterday I was recently involved in where I was like, well, I don't think automakers are going to make a change for the next 3 years and like kill the Hurricane engine completely. They just came out with that. They use it globally and multiple different vehicles. And consumers are like, well, we just want the big Hurricane, or the Hellcat V8s back and that kind of stuff. I think those things are coming back. Ram just announced they're going to bring back the SRT program, for example. I think they're able to do that now because they have 4xe Jeep Wranglers. They have the plug-in hybrid versions of the Dodge products. Escaping the name in a moment. They have the minivan that does that. So I think they have enough going on that they're going to be able to do that now. And I'm not sure what this impact's going to be next, like I said, next 3 years. Because again, automakers do things in longer plans. So it is interesting. It's the first time I've ever seen CAFE fines ended. We'll see what goes on. I know a lot of automakers right now are already shipping out next generation compliant engines. And so it's interesting. There's been a lot, like I said, there's been a lot of controversy about CAFE program the last couple of years. I don't think automakers are going to stop building turbocharged engines and reverse course immediately. I don't see some of the activation ending immediately because it's already part of those engines, and you'd have to do quite a bit of work to take those systems out immediately. I know there are aftermarket solutions that turn that stuff off. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. The other big news was electric vehicle credit ending. This was planned out to end in 2032. And legislators said, nope, we want it done by September 30th, 2025. Automakers and dealers fought this change to no avail. And so the credit was providing a $7,500 credit for new vehicles purchased and a $4,000 credit for used vehicles, EV vehicles purchased. The dealer stated they had 14,000 EV vehicles in dealership lots, and the credit is a primary buying reason for EVs. So without the credit, they see consumers not buying them. Automakers have pledged billions, if not trillions of dollars, new plants, construction, and jobs for future EV vehicles. Again, without the credit, they see this going down. There was a analysis by Bloomberg that said they could see the downturn of 315,000 EV registrations within the first year. And if you don't know how much they're spending, I mean, Ford's Blue Oval City, which is a massive manufacturing campus in West Tennessee, that project is 5.6 billion. It's part of a larger $11.4 billion investment just in that area, 6,000 jobs. It's hard to see that program moving forward without EV credit. So I could see, and we've seen this globally. China got rid of their EV credit for about 6 months, and the EV market collapsed completely, and they lost lots of jobs and things. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know that the EV market and the EV electric vehicles are mature enough to withstand this. Who knows? It'll be interesting to see how it works out. I also heard a quote from Lucid CEO. He made an interesting point. He said new EV startups like Scout and Amazon-backed Slate Auto are going to have face significant issues getting their business going without EV credit. Remember, Slate Auto was promising a $20,000 truck with EV credit. Now they're not going to have the EV investments to help them get started, and they're not going to have the $7,500 tax credit to bring that truck down from $27,000 to $20,000. So does that change all the reservation holders that put money in for the Slate Auto? And does that change the criticism online that I've heard a lot recently, where people are saying, well, automakers aren't building cheap trucks because of greed? Are they going to be like, well, now there's not going to be a $20,000 truck anymore? Now truck prices will keep going up because, automakers are like, well, we're not getting any credits for the EVs, so they're not going to build those cheaper trucks. And then what happens to Scout? I mean, Scout was a cool concept for the EV stuff, and then the extended range EV was going to have some credits as well. They're not going to get that credit either. And are they going to come to market, or is Scout dead? I don't know. Again, interesting to see. And the last thing I thought was really interesting was the auto loan interest deduction. This has got me really curious because at first I thought it applied to me because I buy trucks every year. And now I'm not so sure. Now I got to play with my taxes a little more because now I'm like, I thought I was going to make some bank. I don't know. So the final piece is the U.S. market for the U.S. truck market. It's the auto loan interest deduction. This is up to a $10,000 loan interest that can be deducted if the vehicle meets certain requirements. So it starts at 2025 to 2028 tax year for qualified taxpayers, and it's an above the line deduction, which I'll explain what that is. If you haven't done taxes before, we'll get into this. And I've done taxes for myself over the years. So requirements are eligible vehicles must be assembled in the U.S., manufactured primarily for on-use public streets, roads, and highways, car, minivan, sport utility vehicle, pickup truck, or motorcycle. Vehicle must have a gross vehicle rating of under 14,000 pounds and does not apply to commercial vehicle. So basically, it's a truck that's not a heavy-duty truck or a medium-duty truck. So a commercial truck. According to New York Times, the only buyers who receive the maximum $10,000 max credit are those with new car loans of $110,000 or higher. So try to get the maximum. What does that tell you? $110,000 higher. Think about that for a minute. Luxury truck, right? Your high-end GMC Sierra Denali Ultimate, right? Your Ford F-150 Platinum, your Tundra Capstone. You got to crank those things up to options to get the higher deduction. So the publication quoted Jonathan Smoke from Cox Automotive, who said just 1% of loans in the U.S. are over that mark. So not very many people can get full $10,000 credit. Fine. So I was thinking mid-grade are the so-called luxury trucks. So even the new F-150 Lariat or Limited things, 60,000, 70,000, 8,000s. Those mid-grade, the high luxury trucks are typically built in the United States. Fleet trucks, they're commercial. They don't apply. Lower grade, don't really apply. It doesn't really matter if you spend $50,000. That doesn't really give you a whole lot, especially for the above the line tax deduction. You really want to spend more money on a new truck. Because if you spend more money on a new truck, you get more benefits from a tax deduction standpoint. That's really what that means. It's really beneficial to those who spend more money. Kind of weird, right? This is how you think about this. This is why people get mad at truck market, because from a business standpoint, for myself, my accountant's always mad at me. She always wants me to spend more money. I know the same thing with like Roman at TFL, spend more money. And this tax deduction says if you want the full tax deduction, you should spend more money. So why do you think automakers are building luxury trucks with more features? Because guys like me and guys that have businesses, we need to spend more money to get more tax savings. So that's what that's going to do. So lower end trucks don't apply, and a lot of those lower end trucks, anyways, are built in Mexico, so they don't apply. So if you ever do taxes and you do the above line deductions, this is what it means. So if your tax rate, this is the tax brackets, and then we'll break down more taxes. So if you're making, let's say you're making $58,000 and you're able to do deductions that drop you in this mark from 47,150, and you buy a luxury truck and you're able to drop below this 47,150 down to 12%, you go from 22% 12 to 12%. That's quite a bit of drop in taxable that you pay. So that's what I'm saying. Like if you're right in this line anyways, or if you're on this line up here where you're a high income earner, you bring in $100,000 a year, or whatever, and you start getting these tax deductions and you have things you can write off, and now you're going, man, if I can buy a new truck and I can drop down below this taxable rate, I go from 24 to 22%. Maybe that's enough money that offsets new vehicle price. Or say I'm somewhere in this 48,000, 49,000, $50,000 range. But boy, if I can just buy that new luxury truck and drop myself down below this $47,150 range, I can get down 12%. You can save a substantial amount of money, because then you take your adjustable gross income times that lower tax number. And then you look at these charts and you start seeing the differences. So now this is where it gets kind of tricky. So if you're looking at, like, you're married, filed jointly, and you're making 60,000, let's say you're making not 80,000. Let's see, 80,000. And this is where it sucks. So if you're making 80,000, your taxable income is $9,000, and you buy a truck and it drops you by $2,000. Well, your difference here is $8,899 or $9,139. So really, the difference is $2,000. So it depends where you're at. So that's where taxes get really tricky. It depends if you're going to drop a tax bracket like completely, or if you're just going to move back and forth in that tax bracket. Even back and forth in the tax bracket doesn't really matter. But if you can drop a whole tax bracket down by buying new trucks at a higher price point, yeah, you pay more for the truck loan per month. But if you're going to give Uncle Sam that money anyways, and you get to drive around a brand new luxury truck for the same amount of money you're going to pay to Uncle Sam, why wouldn't you? Yeah, that's a really interesting one. So I do Section 179, so my tax savings are greater than that when I buy trucks. But it does have me thinking, like, maybe I shouldn't do 179. Maybe I should drive them personal. Maybe I should do something different. Interesting stuff. All right, what do you guys think? What was your takeaway from this video and Trump's big beautiful bill? I just want to say big beautiful tax bill, because it's a tax bill with this. I don't know. It's interesting. It's fun to watch the politics work out, and with all these legislation bills, it's always fun to watch and see what happens with the unintended consequences of these changes, and whether changes actually happen. There's always lots of promises, and then you wait 6 months, and sometimes things change and sometimes things don't. That's always interesting. More interesting stuff, check them out over here. Website down below, pickuptrucktalk.com. Link to the article in the description. As always, thanks for watching. I will see you down the road.